No one declared a war they couldn't control. No leader stood up in 1914 and announced they were about to lose control of events. But within weeks, that's exactly what happened. Once the machinery of war began moving, stopping it became harder than starting it. Orders were issued. Trains rolled. Armies mobilized. And before anyone fully understood what they had unleashed, the war was already pulling itself forward. This is the story of how World War I became a conflict no one could stop. Before the war began, Europe's leaders believed in control. They believed wars could be limited, managed, and ended quickly. Military planners designed timetables that assumed precision and speed. Diplomats spoke confidently about deterrence and balance. Even if fighting broke out, many believed it would be brief. That confidence was an illusion. The outbreak of war in 1914 wasn't a single decision. It was a chain reaction. Once one nation mobilized, others were forced to respond. Mobilization plans were rigid and unforgiving. Trains were scheduled down to the minute. Troops began moving before political leaders had time to reconsider. Stopping the process wasn't just difficult. It meant deliberately falling behind while rivals surged forward. Every government claimed it was acting defensively. Each insisted it had no choice. But the machinery of war didn't care about intentions. Once activated, it demanded constant movement. Orders had to be followed. Delays became dangers. And danger was unacceptable. As armies mobilized, political leaders discovered something unsettling. They no longer fully controlled events. Generals warned that hesitation could be fatal. Advisors insisted that pausing now would guarantee defeat later. To stop meant to admit weakness, and no nation wanted to be the first to do that. The war was already pulling itself onward. Railways carried millions of men toward borders they had never seen. Factories shifted overnight to weapons production. Entire economies reorganized around the demands of conflict. Even if someone had wanted to halt the war, the cost of doing so seemed unbearable. By the time the first major battles were fought, the conflict had become self-sustaining. What made this war different was scale. Never before had so many nations committed so many resources so quickly. Industrial power amplified every mistake. Casualties mounted faster than commanders could adapt. Losses that would have ended earlier wars were now treated as acceptable. Because stopping now would mean admitting those sacrifices had been meaningless. That belief trapped everyone. Each failed offensive justified the next one. Every loss demanded escalation. The war consumed manpower, material, and political will at a rate no one had planned for. And yet, no one could step away. Governments feared internal collapse as much as foreign defeat. Admitting the war was a mistake risked unrest at home. Soldiers were told victory was near because telling them otherwise would shatter morale. Civilians were urged to endure just a little longer. The war was no longer about winning quickly. It was about not losing face. As months passed, fronts solidified into endless trench lines. Mobility vanished. Battles became grinding contests of attrition. The original war plans, those neat designs meant to end the conflict swiftly, were rendered useless. But the war did not stop. Instead, it adapted. New weapons were introduced. New tactics were tested. Each innovation promised a breakthrough, and each failure dragged the war further from its original purpose. The conflict expanded, drawing in more nations and more lives. At every stage, someone could have tried to end it. But by then, the price of stopping seemed higher than the price of continuing. The war had grown larger than any single decision-maker. Larger than any government. Larger than the reasons it had begun in the first place. It moved forward because stopping it required courage no one believed they could afford. By the time the world fully realized what had happened, control was already gone. It continued because no one could see a way out without risking everything. Once the war began, the systems that powered it, mobilization plans, industries, politics, and fear, took over. Leaders reacted instead of deciding. Momentum replaced strategy. And a conflict that was supposed to be brief became one of history's greatest disasters. If this breakdown helped you understand how the war spiraled out of control, consider leaving a like. It helps this video reach more people who enjoy serious, in-depth history. And if you want to see what happened once the world realized it was already trapped, subscribe to the channel. The next episode explores the moment the war became truly unwinnable.